I was reading a interview with one of the combatives instructors that I like to follow, Kelly McCann. And in it, he said he really liked Filipino martial arts. And if he was going to do a traditional martial art, that would probably be it, because it embraced dirty fighting and things like weapons use and improvised weapons. I agree with his assessment. Now, from a combative's point of view, there's just way too much extra in Filipino martial arts. Combatives purists and Filipino martial artists may not see eye to eye a lot of the time. However, both disciplines can really enhance the other one. Filipino martial arts has great drills for coordination, timing, and just building skill. A lot of the drills don't have direct fighting application. And this is a problem for the combatives purist, because they want to see direct application as quickly as possible. And that is a good mission. Often, the Filipino martial artist looks at combatives and sees something that is too simplistic and brutal and focused on just simply attacking somebody rather than building skill and artistry and beauty in motion. Watching video clips of people training Medusa and Libra and other knife combatives, it usually looks like someone training to just commit murder. And that's not really what it is. However, when you see Filipino martial artists training together, you see two guys with knives, equally armed in almost a dueling fashion. It is much easier to digest for the average person because it seems like a fair fight. But what training this kind of stuff does for the Filipino martial artist is it gives a sense of the reality of knife violence rather than the artistry of knife training. You need to have both. One keeps you honest about what you're doing. It also keeps you honest about what you have to defend against if you're going to teach knife defense. If you claim to teach people how to defend against knives, you should have a system that embraces the reality of the brutality of knife violence. It really doesn't matter if you use a knife in the hyper-aggressive way we use it in Medusa, or in the flow and counter-cutting way we use it in Filipino martial arts. The reality is that if you use a knife for defense, you will likely not be facing another person equally armed. They'll be either armed with a better weapon or with no weapon. And the average person will view you as a psycho for using a knife in self-defense, regardless if your actions were warranted or not. The Filipino martial artist may look at the knife combatives guy as someone who is somewhat unskilled, somewhat barbaric in their application of edged weapons, and maybe a bit simplistic in their application of edged weapons. Whereas the knife combatives person will look at the Filipino martial artist, and a lot of them will see someone who has a fantasy approach to knife training, someone who's using disarms and flow drills and playing give and take drills like what Keith and I are doing. But they both enhance each other. Combatives will give your Filipino martial arts a little more honesty and integrity in understanding what it is you're doing and what you're training for. Whereas Filipino martial arts will give you something to train for a long time and develop a deeper level of skills and sensitivity and adaptability in your knife combatives. By doing both, you'll become a much better and a much more realistic practitioner of edged weapons. And believe, the one thing I have to make clear, I absolutely need people to understand, is that this is not the only level of force that people who do Medusa or Piper or Libra train in. Most people who do that, most people who do those systems train to be able to do multiple levels of force, but they like to train for the worst case scenario the most. If we're completely honest, knife combatives is something that we will never, or hopefully never, get practical use of. But, like the saying says, I'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. Thank you.